And so we are now recording for the Insider Insights, Who's Hiring and How to Stand Out. Once again, I'm Ken Roberts. Interior talent is who we are. Been around since 2003, nearly 18 years of recruiting for the interior design and hospitality, interior design and engineering and architectural industries. And we are so excited to present this. I have two wonderful panelists that are going to be here today. The first is going to be Bri Pius. She's one of our lead recruiters, and she's going to be sharing some great insight for you to how to present yourself a little bit more effectively. And of course, our president and co-principal there, Nadia Roberts, she's going to be starting us off. So I'm going to let her take it off on here we go. And so I hope you enjoy, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken, and welcome everyone. We're excited to be here. It's lunchtime for us, so either lunchtime or morning for you guys. Thanks for jumping in. We put this together, as Ken said, because we get so many questions asked to us from our candidate database, and every day we're fielding questions and calls, so we thought it'd be a great opportunity to put it in one concise webinar so you guys get the information as things have been moving so quickly, and information that was relevant a couple months ago has even changed. So I'm going to start it off with a lot of people ask me what new skills or what are employers looking for right now. And I'll tell you that there are some things that have changed. So definitely in the bucket of technical skills, as we all can imagine, employers are looking for people who can operate virtually. So whether that means even starting off in the interview, of course, it's really important doing virtual interviews, but as the business environment has changed and new tools have been integrated and people have to conduct business in a virtual manner, being able to rise up to that challenge and being able to exhibit those skills and share with prospective employers that you have them has become really, really important. And so whenever I know for our candidates, whenever they have an interview and we're prepping them on the virtual and how to handle it, we go kind of like the 101, but even though everyone's been, a lot of people working remote, still some people miss the fact. So being able to, I think the bigger component is being able to embrace all the new platforms that people are using and being able to really be open to them. That's really key. There's been a lot of change. And being someone that can pivot, can be open, is a yes person. We've got companies that have implemented entire new systems, and it can be overwhelming. So I know that our clients are looking for people that are, when you sum it up, a yes person with technology. The other thing is driving business. And what this means is that we have found that even in positions that are not sales or marketing related, ones that maybe top of mind you don't think of as business drivers, it's kind of going back to that adage of having to wear many hats. We're finding clients are really looks at every position and how in that position can you create opportunities and make sales, because sales comes in all components. You're selling when you're a designer, you're selling an idea, a project, but it goes back to having the attitude of really being aware of what is happening in a company and really understanding what your role is, whether you're in an administrative role, a project manager role, a design or sales. But really understanding that at the end of it, we've all looked at this year and found that people had to be creative and couldn't rely on their old ways of doing business or count on those referrals just to come through. So every position really jumping in and creating opportunities and being valuable. So I mentioned this already, but I honestly can't say it enough, is being a yes person. When we had clients at the beginning of March, when this was hitting and people were getting a little bit nervous what was going to happen, and we're faced with really tough decisions on what to do with their teams. As things rolled in for a few months, I'll tell you the employees that stayed were both those that really embraced change, motivated the team, came to the table with ideas and solutions. So when you're a job seeker on the market, it's really important that you exemplify those traits so that you give examples that situations you've had to be a yes person, or a company's been changed, or there's been ownership or private equities come in. Whatever that is, people are looking for indicators that someone is fluid and able to adapt. Because if nothing else, I think we've all, as I said before, we've all woken up every day and been like, okay, what's going to happen today? How can I move the needle and how can I push things forward? And people are looking for team members that are open to that. So, and the big picture, going back to the understanding, being part of a company, what their goals are, not being so focused on what is in it for you. I've heard this from a lot of clients, and especially the ones that have made it through the last few months and are coming out on the other side successful and busy. They've all reflected and said, this has been a collective effort. This has been our entire team rallying together, people jumping into positions and roles and responsibilities that were not theirs on the onset or were not theirs in January, and really understanding what everyone had to do. So this is relevant. I'm sharing this with you because this is what we hear from our clients all the time. So it's really important that when you're interviewing and when you're a job seeker, you're highlighting these traits that you have. And Ken will let me know if there's any questions as we jump in. But,
yeah, we have one question that on the
I'm going to go back then because that's,
yeah.
I'm going to go back to the slide. Okay.
Yeah, so the one question on the technology side was, so there's a recommendation from an older, very experienced architect or designer with limited technology knowledge to apply for a position where mentoring, guidance, and technical experience matters. I can start with, there is the technology component, because of the remote side, obviously is pretty important, but there are companies, especially on the architecture side, where they're going back into the office and they're more comfortable in that space as opposed to being remote. Those companies are always still looking for leaders, and the right leaders that can mentor and guide their team and maybe even help with business development, what have you. And those people that have a more tenured experience could be very positive in that. But at the same time, pushing yourself to learn some more technology is not going to hurt you, right? So, there are great opportunities to take classes online or do them now while you're in the process that kind of show that you can do that. And typically, someone with 15, 20, 30 years experience, they're not going to be asking you to do production work, right? They're going to really want you to be able to kind of redline and guide the younger team members. So you wouldn't be expected to put together a full set of construction documents. But
hey Ken, if I could just add on to what you're saying there,
yeah.
also about taking the classes to learn some of the technology. We've thought about this a lot, and it is something that our team has worked really hard on. Actually, if you go to our resource page on our website, we've compiled a whole list actually where, if you have the skills but you want to brush up on them, or you want to just freshen up, or you just want to learn from scratch, there is a ton of free trials for a lot of softwares that are relevant to the industry. So check out the resource page as a starting point, because sometimes when you're doing a Google search, and it can just be a little confusing on where to start. So
that's a really good point.
Definitely check that out.
And the other thing I was going to say as well is sometimes to Ken's point, and it's a good question that people are more mature in their career, maybe have not been advancing in the technology skills as much. But just as a direct example, we've got a client right now that's looking for a head of sales within our industry. And one of the components is they're implementing Salesforce in their company, which is a big overhaul. And one of the requirements isn't that somebody actually knows Salesforce, but rather that this person is open to being a champion and a cheerleader for the product as it relates to the salespeople. So sometimes if you don't have this skill set, it's also being able to exemplify that you're someone that is going to take the time on your own to learn it. And if it's a new tool being implemented in the company, you will be a cheerleader and you'll see the positive things as opposed to getting caught up in the negative, which a lot of people sometimes get when it happens to change. It can be uncomfortable, make people negative. So I think to the point is, even if you don't have the skill set, being someone that's willing to train yourself and be an advocate can go a long way when sharing that with an prospective employer.
Absolutely. Great. Actually, great points.
Anything else, or should I push forward?
Push forward. There's another question, but it's not relevant. It's going to be relevant in a little bit.
It's relevant, just not on that sheet, on the slide.
Correct. It'll be relevant in a little bit. To the next slide.
Okay. Okay. So this, of course, everyone wants to know who is hiring. And so you can see the bullets. I'm going to dig into them a little bit. And this is coming from a lot of different areas, us talking to our clients all the time. Of course, the most obvious, the positions and sectors we're working on. So, if a recruiter gets a call and a client is willing to hire an outside company to help find that, that they have the work and they're busy. And it's also just us being involved in the industry. So multifamily is big. It's not as number one, but we're starting to see our multifamily clients come back and see a lot more proposals going out. The other thing we're seeing is with multifamily, it's been interesting because these multifamily public spaces, for example, have become even more important during this time. And they've realized, for example, a lot of community spaces and gyms and stuff are closed. So relying on the spaces that you have. So we've seen many multifamily clients continuing on with their projects, also having to do some reconfiguring, making sure that they're more vignette-like spaces that are 6 feet apart, etc. But we always say when you're thinking of the job, what's hiring, like take a step back. Like on a macro level, what we're seeing is a lot of people in major cities such as New York and San Francisco, that very high real estate rental cost cities that maybe had a lot of roommates, have taken this opportunity to move out of those cities and are looking for space that is a bit larger. So do they need a home office? Do they, all of those things. How do they live? Do they need a balcony? Now they're not in a place where they're being able to enjoy the city or paying those exorbitant rents for city that doesn't have everything at this moment, maybe doesn't make sense. So we're seeing the multifamily both on the apartment and on the condo side, a lot of the projects still going forward. Builders, this is specifically, we're seeing residential building. Confidence is at an all-time high with builders. I think the last article I read said their numbers are the top since in the last 13 years. And it goes the same methodology. A lot of people moving to outside of major cities, getting more space. They've been cooped up in small spaces with their families or roommates or what have you, and realize that I can do my position remote. The world is changing and moving. So residential sales have been really high. With that, it's the snowball effect. With residential sales being really high, you see residential design. So residential interior design firms and architecture firms have been really busy as far as direct who's hiring. The builders are hiring. We're seeing a lot of that. And then when you look at all the home products that get specified within, so even people certainly who aren't moving but have now spent a ton of time in their home are looking to do those renovation projects. They're not planning on traveling or using that their extra money to travel or different things or entertainment, so they're reinvesting it back in their home. So I'm sure most of you can attest, I'm sure you know someone trying to get some residential work done or heard, and builder prices are high, there's delays, all of those things. So it is busy, and I think it's great because in the last recession, well, not saying we're in a recession, but I'm talking about the recession we had before, it was difficult for people to get access to money. So now with the interest rates really low, we're still seeing that pocket of the industry having a lot of growth. We were talking this morning too, because as I said, it's ever changing, and Ken and I were talking about how actually even more exciting is we've seen literally just in the last 10 days, and you can jump into if you want, Ken, that a lot of our more commercial driven clients, even some in hospitality, have the highest number of proposals being sent out in the last couple of weeks. And for us, that's exciting because that pocket's been slow. And if you want to share a little bit on that, Ken.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I polled just a few of my clients that I was talking to, and these are, mid to large size architectural firms that have just said, they're just surprised at how many RFPs have come in just in the last few weeks. And it was just like September 1st came around and then boom, there was all these proposals. So that's a really good sign. And it's everything from hospitality and other commercial projects, government work, there's a ton of stuff, but it's just a good sign. When architects are busy, designers are right behind, but we cover both sides of that. So it's really positive.
Yeah. And that was it, because as I said, that part's been slow. We found most of the rebound for us, like it was really slow March and April, and we've been really busy, residentially focused in all facets. So it's been exciting to hear of other clients reaching out saying, it's exciting. We've got some things cooking. So saying that, Bree's going to jump in on the next part, which is so important. We talked about how can you stand out, and it's how do you do your virtual presentation? How can you put your best foot forward? And I'm going to leave it in the very capable hands of Bree.
So a lot goes into it, especially, when you're unemployed or you're just looking for that change. It's a lot harder now. I feel like there's a lot of, I's to dot, T's to cross. So we've kind of broken it up into a few sections. So first off, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is kind of going to be your best friend. In the past, a lot of people have primarily used traditional job boards like Indeed, Career Builder, Monster. All still great, but I know as a recruiter, we spend a really large amount of time on LinkedIn, not just job searching and looking for the right candidates, but also networking within our community itself. So take the time to freshen up that profile. If you don't have a LinkedIn, you really need to get on top of it. It goes back to being able to advance within the technology. People are networking, people are connecting on here. So it's really multifaceted where you can get a lot from LinkedIn. If you go on your profile page, LinkedIn will actually tell you how far along your profile is, what you need to do to set it up. I truly encourage you to take all steps in setting it up completely. Your custom URL is going to be important because that's going to go on the top of your resume. That's what we're seeing more. When you have a custom URL, it's going to say, you know, like linkedin.com/Bree/Pybus versus 50 plus unique characters. So it's going to be a little more memorable. It's going to be a lot more condensed. Your photo, equally important. You want to stand out. So when you're choosing your photo, this is completely different than choosing a Facebook photo. Make sure that on your LinkedIn photo, you're not choosing a selfie. You're not choosing a photo that's got multiple people in it. You're not using a photo that's 10 years ago that you look nothing like. You want to use something that's relevant, that's fresh, that's as professional as you can possibly get to stand out, because this is going to truly reflect your brand presence. Take the time on your LinkedIn profile to add keywords. So there's a keyword section where you can add your skills. So any softwares or other skills that are relevant to your position, make sure you're adding those, because as a recruiter, we can type in those keywords, and if you have those, you're going to pop right up. So you want to really increase your exposure there by just maximizing as much as you can. And then LinkedIn also has a really great feature where you can upload projects. I don't always recommend uploading the resume because you always want to tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for. But you do have the opportunity to upload some projects that you're proud of, whether those be renovations you've completed, links to websites that show some of the work that you've done, whether that be your portfolio or even blog posts that you've written. Out of LinkedIn, we move on to social sites. A lot of companies are doing social media checks now just to make sure that you're in line with brand presence. So edit everything, keep it as professional as possible. Make sure that you're on private. Whatever is public, make sure, again, it's professional. Take the time, do a quick Google search. All you have to do is go to the Google search engine, type in your name. I guarantee you, you will be shocked at what could come up on the search results or the images, things that you never would have even thought of. So just take the time to do it. It takes 5 to 10 seconds, but you'll sleep better knowing that you're clean. So resume and portfolio, again, this is your bread and butter. This is what you're using to apply to all the jobs. You want to keep it classic. It doesn't need to be busy. It needs to be truly eye-catching. You want to make sure that your most recent experience is at the very top of your resume and you work down. You need to make sure that your resume matches your LinkedIn. Time and time again, we see that the dates especially, they don't match up on your resume and your LinkedIn, and we really need to know the right dates. So make sure that that matches in its entirety. Make sure that the dates match and make sure that the job titles match too. Your portfolio, you need to outline your responsibilities. It's just one extra step, but if you work for a paint company and you put an entire renovation, we're gonna think that you did everything from the flooring to the FF&E. So just take the time to outline exactly what you did in that project and include all phases of the project too, so we can see, you know, how that project transitioned. One thing that we don't have on here that I think is really important if you're moving into more of a sales focused role is you really need to have quantifiables on your resume. So quantifiables are just things that you can prove, things that involve stats, they involve numbers, that really show the value that you brought to that company. And then last but not least, after you've interviewed, follow up with your recruiter, follow up with the hiring manager. Time and time again, this can be the nail in the coffin, as I say. The thank you note is extremely important. Right now, I know on the Zoom interviews, you can be meeting more than one person, and I get this question all the time on how do I do a thank you note when I've got 2, 3, 4 people I met. So really simple. If you don't have all the emails, reach out to your recruiter. I guarantee you they will get those for you. Each single thank you note needs to be personalized and it needs to be sent individually. So if you met with me, Ken, and Nadia, you would send me one separately, Ken separately, and Nadia separately. Sure, the very beginning, it might sound a little generic, but you need to find a way to tie in however you connected with that interviewer into that thank you note, because your thank you note is going to show that you are extremely interested in the position even after you walked out of those doors. And then last but not least, even if you're not in the job market, you should always be networking within your community. This goes right back to what Nadia was saying about being an asset, being valuable. Even if you're not in a sales focused role, it's great to stay connected. It's great to know your key players. And it's great to just have that bond within the community. So we have some more resources that we're going to pivot into that dive a little more into networking. Nadia, did you have any thoughts for, anything else candidates could do?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, and I think Ken maybe had one, but what I was going to say on thank you notes, I love to give specific examples. So I had a client recently that it was for a leadership role. They had 3 people, all 3 send thank you notes, both electronically and actually handwritten mailed, which was lovely. However, my client, when we received one of them, and it was actually one of her top candidates, and it was mailed, she was so excited, she opened it up. And it was so generic. It just said, thank you for your time today. I really, just the basics. And, she called me and she said, it sounds like I'm being nitpicky, but this is a role that we're looking for someone innovative and thinking outside the box. And to not be able to put something of more depth, it's sort of like opening up an empty gift when, a box with nothing in it. And she said, that's what it felt like. And it's if you think of every interaction you have, whether you're doing a LinkedIn reach out, whether it's your first virtual interview, a thank you note, think about how you can make it memorable and how you can stand out in a positive way that shows that you're excited, interested, and really thinking a couple steps ahead. So I just think it's also, think about just not checking the box, but also the quality of what you're putting out there. Ken,
Right.
did you have any?
Yeah, well, one of the questions was specifically about can thank yous be emailed? And so I think we answered that, yes, they can. Of course, handwritten notes can be a benefit as well, but we got to make sure the same thing. There's some kind of connective tissue in that thank you to make sure that they remember. The key is you want to be remembered, right? So in a positive way.
I'm going to show. I think that's a great segue, Ken, because I'm going to show you something else that when we talk about technology tools, we've seen more than ever people utilizing video emails. And video emails, what we're seeing, they're being used with clients a lot because you can't see your client. You can't physically go meet them right now in a lot of cases. So it's a way to maintain connection and stand out, but also for networking or as a follow-up to an interview. And I have an example, and I hope you guys will be able to hear it because I think, now, Keith, this is an example of someone that met an individual at a networking event. So this isn't a thank you, but this is an example of one that's super professional, memorable, and just great. And I can guarantee you, if you interview and you send something like this, there's very few people doing it. So we're going to go and I'm going to hit play.
Hi, David. It was such a pleasure to meet you out at the Young Professionals Networking event. I think some of the things that you are doing in the community are absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited to be a part of them. So let me know if there's anything you need from me in the meantime, but I look forward to continuing this conversation and connecting with you more. Have a great rest of your day. Hi, David.
Sorry. One thing I want to note that she did that was really great is she held up, if you notice, she held up the sign, the whiteboard. And the reason she did that is when you are sending a video email, as you know, it sort of screenshots and stops when it arrives. And a lot of times you could have your face in a very awkward position. So by her writing the name and just keeping a smile at the start of her video, it guarantees when that arrives in somebody's inbox, what they see is a happy face, and meaning hers, and the hi David on the board. And it's not mid the mouth, fish agape mouth or whatever. It's really professional. So I love this. And I think, Ken, if I remember last time we did a webinar, we recommended Cloud HQ is a free service that you can utilize to do that. So you don't want to be overdoing this, but let me tell you, if you, like I said, if you did an interview and you walked out of there and it was really a job you're excited about and you sent something like this, you would probably be in the top 5% of people doing that.
Very good. That's right. We got some questions. You want to go to the next slide now? We can answer some questions.
Okay. Do you want to do the questions now or should
Yeah,
I?
let's do a couple real quick. So one of the questions here was about, are you seeing an increase in employers looking for contract or freelance workers? Is there anything contract and freelance workers should do differently to better secure work than a traditional employee?
That's a
You
good
wanna start
question.
off? Yep.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase, and for a couple reasons. One, if it's a segment that is, for example, we mentioned several of our clients just putting out RFPs and just starting to get busy and really not sure or not having 100% confidence of what the future will hold. It's a great opportunity to bring somebody on and not worry about, do you have enough work in 6 months? So we're seeing from that standpoint, absolutely. We're also seeing some really interesting and innovative companies coming out of the woodwork that are very virtual based, that are offering virtual design programs and services and things of that nature. And we're seeing, once again, so I would put in the bucket of startups. I think whenever you have a shift in the economy, out sprouts innovation in between the cracks of the sidewalk. And so we are seeing some startups that are looking to hire and maybe don't have the capital to bring on an entire team of full-time. So we're seeing that. And we're also seeing companies that have furloughed a lot of their team, but then have projects coming in they need help with. So it might be a very specific skill that is needed on a certain component of the project. So yes, we are seeing more to answer part A. Part B, how to stand out. I think I can say from myself and what clients say, being a contractor and being very upfront what you can do, not only skill set, but also your availability. So sometimes the challenge with a contractor is, it starts off great and all of a sudden another project they're working on is it goes to a different phase and they're busy. Now they're down to being able to only dedicate 15 hours a week or something. So if you're a contractor that is juggling multiple projects, you need to be really upfront about what you can commit to so the client knows, because that can be really frustrating. And I think that's information that's really valuable to put in the front end. So I know there also are contractors that can work full time and they're just in between looking. So then denote that you're available full-time hours. So I think keeping your resume updated, your specific skills you can do, and your availability, and your office setup. What software programs do you have on your home computer? Can you actually do CAD remote for them? Do you need them to ship you a laptop? Like, there's all these different scenarios. So really letting people know up front. Bree, did you have something?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay, I just didn't know if you had a little add-on. I saw you. Anyway, so is there another question, Ken, or should I jump into this?
We'll jump in and we'll get to these other questions, but we're definitely.
Yeah, I know we're kind of getting on time, so I'll go real quick. What are the motivators and challenges in the geography, and why are people hiring? I feel like we touched on a lot of these, but reasons for hiring, once again, people laid off. And what we were surprised to see is a lot of companies that laid people off, even when they were bringing them back in, actually decided to top grade their team, partly because of some of the things we addressed earlier, that in the beginning phases before they were laid off or furloughed, they exemplified themselves not to be long-term team members with the right attitude to embrace change and all of those things. So when our clients thought, okay, I'm in rebuilding mode and I've got a lot of ground to make up, who do I want on my team to get me there quickly? I need only 8 players. So we actually saw a lot of people not bringing back their furloughed employees, so top grading the team. And then just the geography, as I said, people moving out of New York City, out of parts of California into secondary markets. So there's just been a shifting. And on the flip side, I think we're going to see in a few months a real demand in those cities now. I think New York is going to have a huge demand for hiring. I think San Francisco, because now when things get busy again and we get on the other side of it, you found a lot of people have moved out. Certainly not, everybody, but there's a chunk, especially the people who are around the 2 to 6 years of experience, where from a financial perspective, as I mentioned, they might have had roommates and this and that and moved back to different areas. So there's that. And I know we're right at the dot of 30 minutes. 2 things I wanted to say. One, we are going to continue doing job seeker driven webinars and really invite you to email any of us topics that you'd like us to take a deeper dive into, areas you felt could warrant its own time on that, because we develop content based on what our network asks us for. So this was kind of an overview. So feel free to reach out to us, anything you want to know more about. And then Ken, is there any Q&A?
Yep, there's a bunch of questions here. Okay,
let's go.
So the contract and freelance, so that was that. And another part to that, are you seeing more companies move to remote or in-office demand for designers? So I just talked about this today with one of our clients. Right now, we're seeing a number of companies still being more comfortable remote, but we're seeing companies start to transition with being in the office as well. Not everybody's fully there, and not all companies are requiring it. But we're going to be seeing, especially the commercial firms, and then if you have an architectural division of your company, they like to be more in the office. But it's not quite there yet. But we are going to be seeing more and more companies, I think, transition back into some form of in the office in addition to being remote.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to add on to that, one pattern I've noticed is the smaller companies are a lot eager to get back into their studio environment and work hand in hand. And the bigger companies tend to be a little more comfortable. And I think when I talk to the leaders, one component, which could be a reason, is the bigger companies tend to be a little more procedure driven, and they're able to quantify productivity with whether reporting or metrics. So they can actually step away and say, hey, our team was actually super productive during this remote time. We met deadline, we had X billable hours. Whereas I feel like some of the smaller companies, they aren't doing that. And they feel like if they know everybody's in the office, they can be sure what everybody's doing. So I have noticed a shift that bigger companies are a little more comfortable remote.
Yeah. One of the questions is someone that wasn't sure if we covered home products under who's hiring. Did you want to?
Oh, okay. Might have gone too fast on that. Home products are really anything from the furniture, the flooring, the lighting, the window treatment. So when we talk about to the trade or retail or showrooms that have products that would be specified, whether from a firm or really an end user would buy for residential renovation. So those home product companies, we're seeing them really restaffing their showrooms. Really, they've beefed up their e-commerce, hiring in that area, virtual designers. So we've seen a lot of increase in home products. That's what we meant by that.
Yeah. Another question was they said at least 2 multifamily developer clients tell me that their loan terms have changed, either at signing or after the loan. Have you heard anything similar from clients regarding financing difficulties? We have heard some things, but it has not been the leader of the conversation. The conversation, if a particular firm is not that busy, usually, obviously, it's been in the hospitality sector has been hit the hardest, but we're not hearing that financing is the lead motivator for not moving forward and not having projects come in. But we have heard it. There's been a couple clients have said it. So
a couple of our multifamily had like some developers that backed out and, financing terms. But yeah, to Ken's point, it hasn't been a driver, but we've heard that.
Yep. To target sales positions in the interior design industry, as someone with plenty of sales experience in another industry, what are some of the key words and transferable skills to focus in on online presence? And that was from Joanna.
Do you want to take it, Bree?
I can definitely dive into it. So sometimes that can be really tough because every now and then it really depends on the level of the position. Sometimes industry experience is mandatory. So I definitely recommend reaching out to the recruiter that's working on it in a creative way. You have to, keep in mind that people's inboxes are flooded right now. So, being creative, being innovative on how to stand out first and foremost. The transferable skills are really going to be your technical skills as far as, how many people have you managed? Have you managed people in a territory? The CRM systems that you've used, like Nadia was saying, we have a client that's implementing Salesforce. If you have experience in Salesforce, then you're automatically going to stand out there. So, the biggest thing that you would need to do to stand out if you're coming from another industry is figure out really how your current or your last position is going to blend with this position. Take a good long look at the job description and figure out which bullet points that you actually have experience in, because that's a great segue into, speaking with someone and saying, look, I don't have the experience here, but this is what I do have experience in. I can handle all of these things. That way you're not starting at ground zero. What would you say? Ken,
No, I
any
think
other-
that's great. And that's great. And one thing you touched on, which was I was going to say, is your biggest clue is the job description. So you could go take a search on LinkedIn, wherever, and look at 4 or 5 home product sales positions. And I'll just give you an example. Say, for example, they wanted someone who had experience selling hospitality. Well, maybe you've sold a product that's not related to home at all, but you did interact with hotel groups or whatever. Find the link so you can pull keywords that, of course, are accurate and true. But unless and it will change, because that's the great thing about LinkedIn. You should be updating, changing this and that. But as far as the keywords, really look at ones you can pull out from job descriptions, because there's a lot of, as everybody knows, there's a lot of AI and algorithms and stuff that go on. And I know how heavily we use LinkedIn. You get all these people that arrive that, oh, these people could be a fit. So you want to make sure the system is picking up your background in this. Look at titles. That's the other thing. Sometimes a salesperson in one industry might be called an account executive, and in another industry, they might be called something different. So look at even what the titles are and make sure you're putting that in. So it's really kind of picking through it.
Yeah, and what I see a lot of salespeople don't do effectively is, listen, if I'm going to hire a salesperson, I want to understand how do they move the needle. What kind of numbers are they focusing on? But not only just the numbers, but percentages. How much have you hit your goal? Have you increased the area? Did you take it in and it was hitting its goal, ineffectively, 80%, and you brought it to 110%. Yes, some companies may want you to sell $1 million worth of product per year, and you're only used to selling, 500,000 maybe. But I think you have to, they want to understand that you can move the needle. And numbers and sales are what's important. But they also want to understand your ability to develop relationships. And now you have to learn how to develop relationships from afar. So this is where salespeople, especially a more traditional salesperson, is having a very difficult time. And that's why so many of we're doing on the home goods side, that's why we're doing a lot of positions, because we're doing a lot of sales, showroom, and a lot of people that are outside sales, because they're seeing that there are some people that are having a difficult time doing this remotely. And so, highlighting the fact that you can do that, maybe that you cover a large region that you're not always face-to-face. So things like that are important. Anything else, guys, on that one?
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
One more thing that I'll add, like really briefly, is just the importance also of just networking when you're in that situation and that you're coming from a different industry and your resume is automatically not going to read exactly word for word. Is getting involved, finding groups, finding webinars like this, connecting with different people, because a lot of times, with sales, it can be all about soft skills too. So take the time to get to know someone, so you're not only relying on your piece of paper and your resume and your profile.
Yep. Good job.
That's a good point.
So last 2 questions. One question was regarding the NCIDQ license. So she knows this is from Farmaz, I think it is. I hope I'm saying it correctly. But I know as NCARB is letting architects to hold more than 1 state licenses. Okay. Is it the same for an interior architect, or can we just have a license for that specific state? I'm not familiar of any type of national interior design license. Each state is individually. For the states that do require a license, now not all states require an interior design license, but for those states that do require it, for you to be able to sign off and stamp documents, I believe you do need to have an individual license for that state.
Yeah, and definitely, I feel like we're always trying to update with the boards and associations, so check them. We do our best to stay up to date, but there also have been some changes. So
yeah, for sure. And last question here is, do you offer one-on-one assistance helping us build our profile and edit a resume and portfolio? We do not have that service. If we have the pleasure of working with you, if we reach out to you and you have the background that our client is looking for, we'll help you with those things to kind of make sure you're presenting to our client effectively. But unfortunately, we do not offer resume or portfolio services. There are some great companies out there. If you want to email me, I know somebody in Atlanta that does it remotely. She's great. My email is Kenneth@InteriorTalent. I'm more than happy to pass you that information on. But a lot of the stuff you can do on your own. I know people get a little worried about it. There was on resume and stuff, someone asked about a cover letter. Can we touch on cover letters? Now, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I'm not a huge fan of a cover letter. I don't think a cover letter is read by the receiver as much as the resume and or portfolio. So I think it depends on the job and depends on who you're sending to. If you're doing a cover letter and it's being sent electronically into a resume applicant tracking system, cover letter is irrelevant. If you're sending it directly to somebody, then yes. But then the cover letter is addressed specifically to that person, specifically to the role, outlining something that there's a connective tissue, once again, between you and that person and the company. But I'm not a huge fan of cover letters. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that.
No, I agree. The only thing I would say where the very few times I'll look at a cover letter is if I see a great background for someone that's not geographically in the right spot, I want them to address that in the cover letter. And so I know they're not just farming that all over. I have no idea. I want them to say, hey, I'm living in New York. I know this position's in Naples, Florida. I'm planning to move. My goal is to get there. Then I'm like, oh, great. That's super relevant information. Even especially my favorite is they're like, say, in a month, I'll be down there for a week and available to take interviews. Great, even more important, because then this is a viable person that my client, and of course now everything's way more remote, but we're talking about experience overall with cover letters. So I think if you've got something specific to share that needs to be answered, that's not answered in your resume, then yes, otherwise no.
Yeah,
I completely agree with that. I think that the cover letters are really, they serve as more of an explanation that you might not want to put on your resume. If you had a break in your career where you took 10 years off, a cover letter is a great way for you to explain, and not saying you have to dive into all the details, but it's great to explain, what you were doing in that time, or what your goals are. I don't normally recommend cover letters, but some positions are great. But for the explanation purpose, and like Nadia said, the relocation purpose, that's the best way to handle a cover letter.
Yeah.
But really, I still prefer, if it's a great resume, I prefer them to write that in the body of the email to me. So
right.
I'm sort of like making an excuse for a cover letter. But really, if I'm getting, and especially if it's a separate attachment, I'm not clicking on it. And I guarantee you our clients are not clicking on it, even for jobs they're working on without us. So.
Yeah, I mean, we when we submit a candidate to our client, we become like your cover letter. We give a bio and a whole summary of your background, and even then, they sometimes don't read it. So I'm not saying cover letters don't work, but the thing is, if you are going to do one, if you choose to do it, it has to be ultra specific to the person, to the job, because I'll say probably 99% of the cover letters that I get that's attached to a resume are completely generic.
Yeah, they've used that for 40 applies.
Yeah, it's a waste of paper, and it's a waste of your time. And if you waste mine or a hiring manager's time, it's not going to look good. The average resume gets.
Is not a biography. I don't need to know where you grew up and the hobbies that you had as a kid. And
I feel like we have a lot of underlying feelings about the cover letter.
Yeah, but listen,
webinar just on cover letters.
Yeah, we could. I think we were
101 ways not to have a cover letter. No, but
that just surfaced a whole bunch of stuff for all of us.
Yeah, so that was a great question to ask. That was good. But listen, that's the last of the questions that we have for now. Let me just double check. Portfolios real quick. When putting together a portfolio, is it okay to use my home projects that I've done? I am looking for a job working for an interior design, but don't have the education. The key with photos in a portfolio is the professionalism of the photo.
Yes.
If you do a before and after with your iPhone, I can tell you that's not going to be really good. So if they're really great pictures, we've seen people do home projects and look amazing. And we're like, oh my God, where was that project? They're like, that was in my living room. And be like, wow, it was incredible. But that's usually not the case. So the key with a portfolio is great photography. And you can do your photography yourself. I know a lot of designers that do their own stuff, but it's done properly with proper lighting. And then more importantly is that, it's not, it's got to be staged correctly. You can't just do a picture and there's, kids play toys on the floor, which we see it. We could have a whole webinar about all the bad things we see, folks.
But I think with the portfolio too, if someone's really serious about transitioning into design, and there's a lot of self-taught designers that absolutely found their passion and they didn't go to school. If this is something you're serious about, from a cost perspective, you could go to a photography school, you could get a freelance person to come in and professionally shoot and light your project honestly, because we've seen it for like a couple $100.
Right.
So if you're building a portfolio and you're serious about it, you should be investing in that. So couldn't agree more with Ken. It's not a matter of whether it's your home or your friend's home or your parents' home. That doesn't matter. It's really about take a look at real portfolios, take a look at designers that you respect their website, how they present their projects, and even how you present it. Outline it like you would if it was a paid project. Talk about what you did. Is there walls you moved? Was there construction? It's really interesting to see what the process was. Do you have a vignette of samples? You may not, but you may, depending how serious you are as a home designer. So just take it seriously.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's all the questions we have, and that's we're going to be ending now. We apologize we went a little over, but it was great interaction and great questions, and we appreciate everybody hanging in there. But you know, please let us know if you have additional questions. You can email us. The email's on the screen there. If you have ideas for the next topic, we'd love your insight on that, because you know what? The reason why we do this is because we want to be a resource for you. Like Bree and Nadia said, is that we have this great resource page on our website at interiortalent.com. And if you just go into resources there, you know, with this tons of information.
We update that all the time.
Yeah, but we want to be a resource. We want to physically be a resource, or virtually, I should say. And we want to give you the information that you want. We really care about this industry. We're very passionate about it. We believe in what this industry does. We care about our candidates and our clients. And we hope that we know that we're going to get through all this positively. Listen, folks, we're busy. As a recruiter, we're very busy. We're fingers crossed, and thankfully, that's a really good sign for the industry. So I hope this brings you a little bit of insight of some of the things to look for and things you should change to get yourself out there and where to start looking. But outside of that, we want to say thank you so very much. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that you'll join us for the next one.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.